I'm MC Connors. My revolutionary idea I'm going to talk about today is how the commonalities between the magical world and the real world. Before I do that, I should probably say a little bit more than Monica was able to. So I'm a senior. My major is in English. My minor is in statistics. I'm from Enterprise, Alabama. I'm a fan of memes, fan of cats, fan of memes about cats. If you were to ever find a cat about memes, that would be the pinnacle of my existence. Should point them in the right direction. Thank you very much. And that's about as deep as it gets. It's about all you need to know in general about memes. So in order to talk about the commonalities between the magical world and the real world, I want you to focus on two ideas throughout this talk. And the first of those is escape. And I know escape, the word in general, sounds like a weird, dangerous, subversive concept. People often think escape from what? And they get kind of sketched out. Escape from prison, escape from responsibilities, same thing, escape from family Thanksgiving. I don't know where you're going here. But today I want you to think about escaping from reality, which again sounds like an in the clouds, abstract concept, but it's something we do, each of us, every single day. Just think about when you're younger. Everybody played pretend or imagination, right? I mean, I know some of you were on the Oregon Trail with me, and I was in the backyard. You got lost, like, somewhere, I don't know where the Oregon Trail goes, actually. I guess I know, okay, I don't mean, I didn't the exact route, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to, like, plot it in my head. I know where it ends up. Okay, thank you. But, you know, you got lost somewhere along the way until you had to, like, fight for yourself survival. There's no water and no eat for, like, miles. I don't know, or maybe you're an Antarctica kind of kid. I don't know. All I remember is one of my favorite memories is one day when I was about 8, I was like, I'm going to make an Inuit lean-to. Something along the lines of this. And so I went into the woods and I got all these giant tree branches and I dragged them back and I leaned them against a concrete wall. And it was freezing cold. I can remember just like laying there looking up between the cracks and the branches and thinking like, this is fun. This is what fun is called. It's so fun. Okay, Inuits don't live in lean-tos, they live in igloos. So I wasn't a very knowledgeable 8-year-old. But what I did understand is the concept of escapism and how exactly you use your imagination to escape from reality, which is what all of us do every day. Maybe you read, maybe you play sports, maybe you still go out in the woods, I don't know, you know. But it's very intuitive to our own lives. I became obsessed with the concept of escapism, and especially as I chose my major and finally got into classes, how it manifests in certain literature. So it made it really easy to choose my undergraduate thesis topic. Dr. Albert Pianki introduced me to a lovely book called The Water Babies. I have been everything I know about the Water Babies. It was published in 1863 by Charles Kingsley, and just like the title suggests, it is the weirdest, creepiest, oddest, most politically incorrect, most questionable book that has ever hit the kitty lit market. It's pretty odd, but it's a fanciful, cool read. You might get a kick out of it. I'll give you the plot breakdown just very quickly so you better understand. The Water Babies, since it was written in the 19th century, was written during industrialization. When it was booming, unfortunately so was child labor. If you were between the years of 1821 and 1850, if you were a 10-year-old boy, there was a 60% chance you were in the workforce. And if you were a chimney sweep in particular, you've probably been in the workforce since you're about 4 years old, because they were small and they could travel up chimneys pretty easily. So that sets the scene for the protagonist of The Water Babies. His name is Tom. He's a chimney sweep. One day he finds himself up the wrong chimney. It happens. Happened a lot. He went in. So he got into this room, obviously the wrong room, and he ran out really quickly, and he ran over some moors and hills, and he finally arrived at this river, and lucky for him, the river was a magical portal to a river world, and when he went inside the river, he became this hybrid water baby, hence the name The Water Babies. He had fun along the way. He met some fish, got to know them a little bit better. He has a spiritual guide, Miss Be Done By As You Did, because that's not allegorical or hinted in any way. And I got a close-up of her in her Snapchat glasses. She was pretty fantastic. None of that made sense, but it's okay. All you about Tom is that he escaped into a magical world from a repressive childhood. He journeyed, he faced trials and tribulations, and he had that spiritual guide to help him out the entire time. Tom's transformation was so dramatic that in my paper I classified it as a Bildungsroman. And all you need to know about Bildungsroman is it's just a fancy name for a genre, a coming-of-age novel, something that features the protagonist going from young to old, or in Tom's case, spiritually immature to really mature. Think about Boy Meets World, the TV series. You know, he's like little, like playing with Mr. Feeney, and then one day he's married to Topanga, and you're like, this series should have died out a long time ago. But that is a perfect example of Bildungsroman. And that brings me to the second idea that you should keep in mind for this talk, which is growth. Tom's dramatic transformation that involves so much growth. And escapism and growth are not unfamiliar concepts to each other. They were not only prevalent in the Water Babies, and way before that, but I was just using that as an example because I studied it, but it's lasted until our postmodern age. There's something deeply universal about the pairings of growth and escapism that they've lasted into the 90s and today. In other words, the Water Babies will never die. They're not leaving. We gotta want them to. So just to test this theory that escapism and growth have lasted this long, let's think of a novel that faces all these tropes. Bad childhood, journey into a fantastic mystery world, a few problems, not big ones. Just like some guy with a nose, without a nose that won't stop bothering you. This kid. And he's cute. A dramatic transformation from young to old. Yes, have you heard it? It's Harry Potter. It's that cheeky little chap from Britain that saved us all from the Dark Lord. Harry Potter is indeed a Bildungsroman novel. I guess if you're allowed to send it over the course of 7 novels, definitely with escapist elements. And there's something to be said for that. There's something to be said that the pairings have lasted this long. Otherwise, why would the book sales from Harry Potter gross over $8 billion? Why would there be an amusement park dedicated to its name, and why do I have a Pottermore account at my age? I have 2 because I got really confused. I got my first house. So I want to talk about it. I'm not going to talk about it yet. It's really funny. So the question becomes, why does the Bildungsroman protagonist have to leave the real world and enter the fictional one? I mean, it seems a little bit ironic. To ask the question a different way, why do we have to construct false scenarios to uncover truths about ourselves? Why do we have to embark on 10-year journeys, pal up with a guy named Hagrid, fall down rabbit holes to better understand something as close to home as Privet Drive? Well, to pose this question in a different way, why did we have to come to college and find out more about ourselves than we would have if we had stayed home? So I'm going to do another experiment for you. We've already proved that the Bildungsroman and escapism and growth all held together over a centennial, but have they lasted until today, and are they strong enough to penetrate our own lives? So here we go. I want you to imagine yourself as your own Bildungsroman protagonist. Imagine yourself as the featured character in a novel. And that means instead of starting at adolescence, we'll just say it started at freshman year, and it goes until your senior year. And if that happens, if we apply the formula correctly, then the portal, the river, the Hagrid, to the magical mystery world of the University of Alabama is Bam Bound! Yeah! You guys follow the river Bam Bound! And I don't know where my Bam Bound photo is. I've lost it. So he's Monica's, because it's so much better, she looks divine. Yes, the University of Alabama, if you think about it, all of our universities are constructed. They're these constructions of little tiny clubs that help us practice our skill set without actually hurting people. We practice in SGA to practice our communication skills and our policy skills so we can actually do better once we're out in the real world and continue with reality. I'm sure you faced many trials and tribulations while at the University of Alabama. I know I have. We've probably met some spiritual guides. professors, friends, older and younger. Maybe Enterprise is so repressive, I kind of love it. But there's something about Tuscaloosa that's so magical that it's almost this fantasy construction in and of itself. So what does all this mean? If you're a senior like me, you've unfortunately come to the end of your building's run-in. And that's really hard to think about. And we talked a lot about what escaping from reality is, and what happens while you're there. I can't tell you why that might happen because there's so many people in different scenarios and environments, but I can try to talk to you about how we look back on that escape, and how escape allowed us to grow as people, as individuals during our college experience. Well, I can't actually tell you, but my good friend Carl Morgenstern can. Carl was the leading Bildungsroman critic. He delivered the very first address at the University of Dorpat in 1819, and he even, I think he coined the phrase, but he was definitely the leading theorist, and he has some paradigms that I think we can apply to our own lives, our own novels, because we're still in the experiment where you're all protagonists. So Carl says two things. Well, Dr. Morgenstern says two things, I don't know why. The first thing is that Bildungsroman as a novel are a gestalt. So if you don't know what it means, it just means more than the sum of its parts. Just like we don't dock Harry for the bathing scene in year one, or like the tiny, almost like kill Malfoys and sketchy. Or the trout that Tom kicked. We're gonna think about our college experiences holistically, and we're gonna look past the bold-faced type of a resume and see in between to the friendships, the love, the relationships, the skills that we've gathered, and something more important than achievement that a resume doesn't highlight, which is failure. And the second thing Carl says is personal cultivation of the hero rather than the level at which they've mastered a certain trade becomes the ending achievement. So it's a little shaky in our experiment because we want to master a trade, because that's why we're here, is to master something and get a job. But what he's trying to say is, I think he put it really well, that when a reader finishes one of these novels, when you finish Harry Potter, you want to think, the protagonists, they're going to be okay. Things like an epilogue are written for us. We may have an internship or a job to look forward to, and that's wonderful, but those are volatile variables that should go to support the claims made to our character instead of validating them. So if somebody were reading your Bildungsroman, and they were flipping through and they're like, this person's really great, would they, at turning the last page, think, based on character, based on their personal relationship with you over the course of so many experiences, think, they're going to be okay?